Mate, did we watch a thing this week?
Yeah, we did.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Watched a Thing. I'm Billy.
Hi, Billy.
How are you, Toph?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
How are you?
I'm very, very good.
Glad to hear it.
Yes, because what did we watch this week?
This week we watched Spike Lee's new film, Black Klansman,
Yes, we did.
based on a book that you have taken in.
That's right, I've read it. All right, for everyone listening out there, the reason Topher is giving me side-eye is because he doesn't believe that to listen to an audiobook means that you have read it.
That's true. It means you listen to it. Which I'm not knocking. I'm just saying, why don't you say you listen to it?
Because it's the same thing.
Not the same thing.
I've taken in the information.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm not saying you're not aware of what happened in the book. I'm just saying that
Okay, fine.
you listen to it.
I've listened to the book.
Was it good?
It was very good. It's one of those books, though, that you're actually not sure why it's good. Like, not a lot really happens in it. It's a all in all, it's actually kind of a dull story. But there is something about, especially the audiobook, it's read by the author. So it really is a memoir, and something about that just really fascinates. So we'll get into, obviously, so that this is very, very loosely based on the book. I'll say that. There are things that are based in fact, and there are a lot of things that are just straight up fictionalized. Yeah. But yeah, the book is very good, even though it's kind of dull. And I think it's worth reading. So the film...
Or listening to?
Or listening to, you dickhead. So the film Black Klansman, directed by Spike Lee, written by, get this, 4 people.
Oh, we normally love script by committee.
So this was written by Charlie Wachtel, David Rabinowitz, Kevin Willmott, and Spike Lee, and it's based on, as we said, the 2014 book BlacKkKlansman by Ron Stallworth. It stars John David Washington, Adam Driver, Laura Harrier, and Topher Grace. It premiered at Cannes Film Festival. It was up for Palme d'Or, didn't win it, but it did get the Grand Prix, and it was released on the 1-year anniversary of the Charlottesville rally.
So John David Washington, our lead in this film, doesn't look a ton like his old man, but every once in a while a word, just like maybe a single word comes out in a line where you're like, oh yeah, you're Denzel's kid.
Holy crap, I had no idea he was Denzel's kid until you said that just then.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. He was great in this film, though.
He's good, yeah.
I mean, the acting all around is superb.
Oh, props to the cast.
Yeah. Cast is... I mean, look, I'm just going to come out here and say it now. There's no point holding this back. Cast is great. Script is great. Direction's great. This is so far my favourite film of the year.
I'm totally into it.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very good film.
Hooray!
Yes!
It's not The Meg.
It's not The Meg. It's so much better than The Meg.
So with the another thing with the cast, Steve Buscemi's brother, Michael.
I know.
Because when he first pops up, I'm like, is that Steve Buscemi?
I had the same thought.
And then I was like, oh, no, it's not. And it wasn't until afterwards that... And, okay, I just checked what his name was on IMDb, and his name is Michael Buscemi. So I am making the leap that he's Steve's brother.
Well, I went the next step and confirmed. It is Steve's brother. I didn't even know that Steve had a brother, yet alone that he was an actor.
Yeah, I didn't think that Steve Buscemi was, like, born of a woman. I thought he... like an orc, kind of just...
I thought he was just that guy who played in Fargo. I think his name is Steve. You know, I had that song wrong for so many years. I thought it was like that guy who played in Fargo, I think his name is Pete. And I always thought that was the joke was that they didn't even know his name was Steve.
Yep.
I was so wrong.
I like your version.
Me too.
Elsewhere, we've got Paul Walter Hauser, who we saw in I, Tonya.
Yeah.
He was fantastic in I, Tonya. He's fantastic in this. Is he ever going to get to play not this guy?
Clearly he's... I don't even know if you'd call him a character actor, but he was very good.
He's brilliant. There's some things he does in this film where there's a conversation happening next to him, and he's just there with this full mouth breather expression on him.
Yes.
He just does these little things that are so great.
Yeah. What's so great about the film in general, but especially what I liked about that character, is the way that the casual hatred comes across in the film.
Yeah.
Like, when you think of the KKK, generally you think of extremely evil people. Yep. But this shows just how some of them are. Like, this guy is just a dumb guy who just casually hates. You know, like, most of the things he says are just stupid. And then every now and then he comes out with something so hateful. It was so well done.
And again, another great example of it, I think, the way the film does this really well is, I can't remember the character's name. She's married to Felix.
Yeah.
But she's like, if you just met her, if you worked with her or something, you'd be like, she's a really nice person. But then there's this other thing.
Yeah.
She's a mad racist.
Yes.
And like, not just a little bit. She thinks killing people is okay. So one thing that, like, the tone of the film is really interesting because Spike Lee kind of can't help but make enjoyable films.
His command of tone is amazing. The way this shifts from comedy to drama so elegantly. We've mentioned it a few times already, actually. I, Tonya was probably the last movie I saw that did this really well, that blended really well between kind of black comedy and full-on drama. This takes it to the next level because the scenes that are dramatic are so tense and so drama-filled, and yet the very next scene you might be laughing hysterically and you don't even think about it in between. It just, you flow there naturally.
Yep. And then it does these brilliant things where it will make, you know, kind of ironic jokes about them talking about the White House, for instance.
Yes.
With this nod to 2018.
Yeah.
And then, and you kind of laugh at it while also kind of cringing at it. And then later on in the film, a similar thing might happen where it's like, no, you don't get to laugh at this one.
Yeah.
And it just goes whack.
Definitely.
What could be, if it was directed differently or delivered differently, whatever, it could be a similar kind of scene or a similar line.
Yes.
But it can just jump so well between you're watching a fun film and whack.
Yeah, it can really command the emotions that you're supposed to be feeling at that moment.
It does this really, so Spike Lee in the cinema, I haven't checked who the cinematographer was, shame on me. They do this really fun thing in the shooting style sometimes with this mad throwback 70s style thing with
definitely,
you know, lens flares and harsh backlight things out of focus.
The score really lends into that too. It really throws back to that 70s blaxploitation
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's heightened even more with the throwing in of like old movie posters and stuff when they're talking about Pam Grier films or Shaft. And it's brilliant. They're not just talking about it. They actually place you there.
Yeah.
They're still very much using the camera as a storytelling device.
Yeah, and there are those typical, you know, Spike Lee talking about his camera work. He's known for things like Dutch angles, which we do get quite a few of in this film.
Ton of them.
Yeah. Things
which, used badly, real bad.
Yeah, but in this film really work. Things like the dolly shot at the end, that's almost known as the Spike Lee dolly. He does that very commonly and to great effect as it is in this film. The other thing, apart from the cinematography, I really want to call out the editing. Do you see any Oscar potential for this film, particularly in direction, acting, writing? I definitely think that it should be up for best editing.
So far, like on what we've seen, it's got to be in the conversation.
Oh, it has to be.
We're yet to get into that part of the year where studios release the films that they think are going to be up for this, so it is early days. But yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
I think it's got to be up for many categories, but the editing in particular, there are several sequences that make really great use of intercutting between, and there's that wonderful, one of my favorite scenes is that the scene that juxtaposes the nationalization ceremony with the meeting of the African Americans hearing the story of the old man witnessing this KKK attack.
Yeah.
And the way it cuts, it's like what we were saying about the way he shifts tone. You cut between those two scenes and stories and your mind just flows with it. You never sit there going, hold up, what is happening? Which can happen so often when people try intercut.
It's pretty remarkable as well because it's those two scenes are polar opposites.
Yes.
In so many ways. And yet the cutting of that sequence feels so natural.
That's exactly
it's genius.
Right. Even, there is so little dialogue in the KKK ceremony, but it's the vibe and the feeling you get from it, the way it's shot, the way it's directed, the way it's acted. You get that feeling of hatred and you just get this kind of sick feeling in your stomach. And then when you go to the meeting of African Americans, even though the story they're telling is so horrific, you get this sense of love.
Yep.
It's very, very well done.
The handling of all the Klan meetings is, I think, brilliant, because they resist the temptation to make these people caricatures.
Yes.
Like, they're real people.
Definitely.
And, you know, they don't make them cartoony mini Hitlers.
No, well, it's like what you were saying about Felix's wife. She's the kind of woman that if you saw in the grocery store, you wouldn't even know that she was this horrible, horrible person.
And this extends right up to, and maybe even especially, David Duke.
Yeah.
As played by Topher Grace in this. And I think Grace is really good. He plays him sincerely.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about David Duke for a second, who was the Grand Wizard of the KKK and has several times run for things like governor of various states.
Pretty hard to take anyone seriously who's taken on the mantle
of Grand Wizard.
Like, that's not okay to do once you've hit about 13 and you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore. Like, come on, Klan.
See, but that is...
I'm not accusing you of being that smart to begin with, but come on.
That is the interesting thing about David Duke, is that he was the first one who was that smart. And they allude to it in the movie that he refers to himself as something else. I can't remember what it is specifically. It's like
is it national...
National director or something.
Something like that.
And he was smart enough to go, no, let's move away from this. Because he also, interesting, and this is one of the variations in the film from the book, is that David Duke famously never uttered the N-word. That was his stance, was that, no, that's, you know, we don't want that to be our image. Whereas in the film, obviously, he does. One of my favourite moments in the book is when Ron, the undercover cop played by John David Washington, is talking about the day he had to bodyguard David
so that's
Duke.
real?
That's real. That's one of the moments that's real. And the photograph is real as well. But interestingly, he talks about how polite David Duke was to him the entire day. Was just very professional, very courteous, even quite happily agreed to take the picture with him until he put his arms up on him.
Mm.
And that just changed the entire mood of the day. Still, you know, I think it just really shows just what kind of a twisted mind you're looking at, that he is capable of such hatred and yet is able to mask it so efficiently.
Yeah. Duke and others in the film will say these quite pointed lines about, we should be running for public office and this kind of thing, and alluding to people that are, of course, in public office. And again, with the editing, it'll just, after these lines happen, it'll just let it hang for long enough that the audience gets to go, oh, before moving on to whatever is next.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Kylo Ren yet.
No, who was great in this movie.
I have never seen Adam Driver not be great.
Well, I was actually hesitant when I heard that he was cast in this movie. My initial thought was that he was going to be the Walter character.
I could see that.
Yeah, and who in the book is actually a much more prominent character, and the Flip character, who it's very strange. Some of the names have been changed. I'm not sure why, but the Flip character is really not a big part of the story. So when I heard he was cast in that role, I was a bit hesitant, but he was fantastic, and the way that the character was developed was wonderful as well.
Mm.
How did you feel about the stakes and the tension in the film, the build of tension as their investigation goes?
It's by no means the most tense, if you're going to call this part of it a thriller, the police investigation. It's not at the level of some other...
The Departed, for example.
Yeah, but that's fine because that's not remotely what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
There's like one scene in particular when Adam Driver's in the guy's basement where you're like, uh-oh, dramas. And then, of course, the C4 at the end.
Yeah.
And they're handled so well.
It's so, and again, all of that is completely fictionalized. So there was never a bombing. The only thing that the investigation actually stopped was a cross burning. And the other inclusion that I really liked is that the white investigator in reality wasn't Jewish. But I'm really glad for that inclusion because, firstly, it added to the tension, and it also just added to that segment of the story about how racism permeates
There's a nice little scene. Yeah, it's a short scene where Flip's talking about how for him it was never consciously part of his identity.
Didn't really grow up
until it became something that other people projected. It's a nice little scene.
Yeah. It's funny. I was reading something similar actually about people's reactions to that new movie, Crazy Rich Asians, which supposedly is brilliant. And there was a Chinese girl writing about how she grew up, effectively hating being Chinese just because other people hated that she was Chinese. Yeah, people shouldn't be that way.
That's true. Listen to your Uncle Billy.
Yeah. Be nice to each other, people.
Getting back to Washington the Junior, they do nice things with that character. Just his internal struggle with his identity as a cop, and he's the first black cop in this town. It's a big deal.
Yeah, well, and that's true. He was actually the first black cop in Colorado, not just Colorado Springs. Yeah,
and then the struggle between that identity and being a proud black man. It's not a massive part of the movie.
It's actually a bigger part of the book. And I think the way they adapted it was so great. Because obviously in a book you get much more internal monologue. So you get more of those things. So for example, the chapter where he's talking about going undercover at the Black Panther speech, the majority of that chapter is him talking about his struggle and seeing this great man up there speak, who he's heard speak many times and believed with his philosophies, and being there basically to monitor. And I think the way they handled that scene was so well done.
I think, they kind of spring that scene on you because you're like, okay, former Black Panther guy.
Yeah.
And there's a part of your brain that's already kind of placed who this character might be.
Yeah.
And then you sit there as an audience member being placed in this room going, oh, hey, this guy's all right.
And it's a very long scene. They let his entire speech run out.
Yeah, of just talking.
Yeah. It was really, really effective.
Did you, I've forgotten the character's name, the president of the student body. Did you place her? I didn't. It wasn't until afterwards when I checked who she was.
No, I didn't.
She's the girlfriend in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, she seems so much older.
I know. There was no way I was going to get it by myself.
No. Wow, that's crazy.
And she's great.
She was great. And when she first popped up, again, I was hesitant because that entire storyline is fictionalized, as you'd probably imagine. So that entire romance is not a real thing. And so when that first came up, I was scared because oftentimes when they invent those kind of things, they can take over the film and not be that well done. But I really, really loved the addition of that character and what that brought to the story, because that really was where you got that sense of his struggle between being a cop and being a proud black man. Was through that storyline. So I'm actually glad for the inclusion of that.
I actually do have a bit of this film that didn't work for me.
I wonder if it's the same thing for me.
So towards the end, after our heroes have won, there's this kind of hammy, sitcom-y
where they're in a bar?
Stretch of the bar and also back at the station where everyone's high-fiving and stuff. And it's so over-the-top happy and everything that I was prepared for it to stop and be like, no, that was a dream. Here's what happened. The cops shot him.
I was prepared for that as well. I thought the same thing.
And then when nothing came of that scene, which tonally was, for me, off compared to the rest of the film, I was just like, I don't know where that came from, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me.
Especially when the very next scene is the sergeant closing down the investigation. It's like, well, hang on, everyone was just... Yeah, I agree. What really didn't work for me wasn't just those scenes, it was the overt racist cop character who... The focus of that bar scene is him getting arrested, which I'm sorry would never happen. I didn't really care for that character. To me, that was the one piece that was not very subtle. It was overdone.
Yeah, it is weird that the Klan members are not cartoonish.
That character is, yeah. And for me, I would have preferred... because obviously I think what they were trying to do was show that racism happens everywhere, even inside the police in his own department.
Having a racist cop in there makes all the sense in the world.
Makes total sense. But I would have loved, there are some great small anecdotes in the book that don't happen here, which I think just would have shown that in a much better way. For example, when he was fitted for his uniform, the guy measuring him refused to take his afro into account. So he gave him a hat that was 3 sizes too small and sat on top of his fro.
I feel like that was in a trailer. but not in the film.
Possibly it was in an earlier scene that got cut.
Yeah.
And he basically said, well, you got that hair, you got to shave it off if you want to fit in. And he refused and just wore it on top of his head proudly while he would be out in the community. And eventually his boss was like, no, fit this man for a proper hat. One of the other great stories was he was chatting to another cop about hot women. And, they're mostly throwing out, movie stars at the time who are all white chicks. And Ron Stallworth throws out a black woman's name and the other cop instantly closes up and I don't understand. I can't understand how you can find black women attractive. And just outright says it like that, talking to a black man.
Yeah.
Just some more subtle stories like that I think would have, just because racism is one of those things that you don't need to be an overt racist dickhead like that cop to be a racist. It can come through without you even realizing it. And I think some of those smaller stories might have shown that better.
I like that we never I never totally made my mind up on the chief. He's he's a really grey character.
Yeah.
There are times where you're like, oh, no, you're a bad egg.
Yeah.
But there are times where the chief pulls through.
Yeah.
But then and it's not even just like one and then the other and that's it.
Yeah.
It's back and forth. There's this guy who probably is not thrilled to have this guy in his police force.
Yep.
But then occasionally does the right thing.
Yeah. But probably also is still reporting to somebody else. Everyone has a boss. And I think that was alluded to really well at the end when he closes down the investigation. And the way it's shot and edited is really clever because you sit there wondering, why is he closing this investigation? Is someone telling him to? You just sit there and wonder a little.
After we get the sitcom-y sequence, which I didn't love, from there until the end of the film, which we're talking, I don't know, 3 minutes or something, my score for this film goes up an entire point. Where after Spike Lee goes, all right, you've had your fun.
Most powerful
and
ending.
Just wallops you.
Yes.
It is stunning.
Yeah.
The cut to reality and events from a year ago in Virginia.
Yeah. Showing you that, hey, this is a true story from now.
Yeah, not only was it a true story 40 years ago, it's alive and well.
Yeah.
And it is wholly freaking powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the book goes a lot more into like I was saying, it's dull in the way that the story isn't really, but it goes into a lot of the history of the Klan, which I found so interesting because especially being Australian, I knew virtually nothing about the Ku Klux Klan. And I still, even watching the film the other night, I spent the entire night just reading up about Charlottesville because I knew so little about it. And it is mind-boggling to think, I can't even understand the mentality that leads to those kind of events.
Yeah, I don't know if it's being in a different country or just being in a different upbringing or community or what.
Yeah.
Because, we can't sit here and say, oh, that would never happen in Australia. That would be...
we've seen that
would
be
riots. Wholly ignorant.
Yes.
But it's just so far removed from my experience that when the real footage comes up, it is
staggering.
Shocking.
It is shocking. And then when they show the car crash,
Jesus,
which was an intentional ram into counter protesters and then reversing back over them, 19 people injured and 1 dead, is just insane. Yeah, and I'm really, it's funny. One thing I do often after I watch a movie and we're going to talk about it, I'll scroll through like the Reddit discussion threads just to kind of see other people's points of view. It's amazing the amount of people who did not like that ending. And you sit there and you read that and you go, you must be a little bit racist.
I've seen that kind of thing happen in movies and haven't been totally on board. I'm like, okay, no, you took me out of the story or whatever.
But this is such a nice bookend to the story.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Given that it has not worked for me in the past, I suppose, I can understand it not working for someone, even though in this instance for me, it absolutely does.
Yeah. It was such an amazing cut, that ending. You've got that dolly shot of them looking and seeing that burning cross in the distance, almost as this is what happens the second you stop trying to stop them. The second you stop trying, this is what happens. And then you cut to what happened only a year ago and you think, holy shit, that was a year ago.
And they were back out for the anniversary.
Yeah, although did you...
Like 20 of them.
Yeah. Only 20 and over 1,000 counter-protesters. So good on people, I guess.
Yeah. All right, so both of us... Sounds like for both of us, it's one of our favourite films we've seen in a while.
Yeah, definitely. I really flitted around with my rating here. What are you going with?
I'm an 8 out of 10. I think it's excellent.
Right. I'm a 9. I was very nearly a 10, but there were just those few little things, like I said, particularly the cartoony cop and things like that dropped it down a little for me, but certainly one of the most powerful films I've seen in years.
For sure.
And it's not even really aimed at being Australian, our society. I mean, I guess it's globally a message about racism, but it's very much targeted to the US
it's a
and
particular
politics
story
there at the moment. Yeah. But I just loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
All right, so tick of approval from We Watched a Thing.
Definitely. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you haven't seen it, why are you listening to this? We spoil the shit out of everything.
Yeah. Spoiler alert at the end. As is our fashion.
Well, that brings us to the end of August, just about. What are we getting to next?
We have a Patreon request next, don't we?
We do, that's right. A special Monday episode for you. We'll be getting to Notting Hill.
Which I haven't seen.
No, so that's going to be fun. And also, Beth will be joining us as requested.
My sister.
Yeah.
But then everyone just comes out and says how much more they like her than us. I hate it when Betsy.
And then after that, we've been plugging it for a little while now. You'll be getting our 50th episode spectacular, taking over the entire month of September.
A 4-part spectacular.
Yep. Furious Timber. All 8 Fast and Furious films, one sitting. It's intense.
Yeah. It was something.
All right, so if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or at wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support us and get access to extra episodes, early episodes, you can already hear our entire Furious Timber segment probably by now. Then check us out at patreon.com/wewatchedathing and go watch a movie. Definitely see BlacKkKlansman.
Bye, everyone. Have fun, everyone. Let's have fun, everyone. What's that? Bye, everyone.
Nah, you're leaving. Have fun, everyone.